Okay. The next thing that I want to just comment on here, because it was something that was mentioned in the public testimony, and again, this came up when we were in San Jose. It was again referenced earlier today and brought up before on where we are on what's available or what's not available on our website. And I want to just repeat for the board members that the California the California High-Speed Rail Authority, just like every other state agency in California government, has had to go through a process to ensure that the documents on our website are ADA compliant. And so that involved us taking in some documents that were not, and then remediating several of those documents so we could repost them and put them back up. We have had to restructure our website's presentation generally. If you go and take a look at it, I think you'll see it's an easier website to navigate, easier to go through. There are some documents that have come down, and several of those we are remediating and intend to bring back up. Any document that helps tell the story of what we're doing, things like board resolutions, board directions, all of our business plans from the past, these will all come back up. Summaries of our environmental documents will be available as well. And so we are in that process. We had to certify by July 1st that the things available on our website were compliant with the ADA, and we did that. And again, we maintained several of our business plans and other documents, and we are still going through older documents and seeing what we can remediate and bring back up. So it's a process that, again, is not isolated to the California High-Speed Rail Authority, but is one that every state agency has had to do. And we are working through it, and my job is, I can't allow documents to go back up that aren't ADA compliant. And so there's a process involved there. It's also worthwhile to note that we do inform folks on the website if they can't find something on the website. There is a path to receive the documents, either through a PRA or contacting our communications office directly. We try to accommodate all of those requests. So again, it's a work in progress as we go forward. Our commitment remains high on transparency, as you all demand and I believe in, and so we'll continue to work through that. But I want to just be clear on that point. And then lastly, I know it's been mentioned, and before I get into the broader PowerPoint discussion, I know it's been mentioned through Joe Hedges in his F&A committee report, but as we are moving forward on environmental review approvals, we are now working in that space under the NEPA assignment from the federal government, and I do believe that's having efficiency benefits for us as we go forward. And I do want to tell the board and make sure that you're all aware that by the time you all meet again, we'll have approved the ROD for the Bakersfield extension, and following that will be the ROD for the Y that will come in 2020. Shortly after that will be Burbank to Palmdale. So I'll go through the environmental schedule momentarily, but mostly I wanted to say that we are putting that new assignment to work. We're finding some efficiencies in that process. We are having to make up some time from the period where we had some disengagement from our federal partners, but now that we're past that and working together on that, again, the next thing coming up will be the ROD for the extension into Bakersfield, and that will be done by the time we meet again. So I just want to clarify that point. Okay. With that, members, I wanted to roll into this PowerPoint presentation that is one that I originally came up with mostly because we are having a lot of conversations about where we are and what's next, and a lot of focused dialogue about how we are not moving forward in the valley itself. And I just thought it's worthwhile to remind folks, zoom out a little bit from just the valley itself and remind folks where we are as a system and as an authority consistent with the mission that we've been asked to perform on behalf of the people of California through the approval of Prop 1A. So rolling through the document here, I first wanted to just revisit some of our key issues and the way we move forward. The first is, what is the mission of the High-Speed Rail Authority? This is articulated both in the Bond Act and in our enabling statutes, and it's reiterated in some level at the cap and trade section of law that appropriates money to this project. And in essence, it's to initiate the construction of a high-speed train system that utilizes an alignment and technology capable of the sustained speeds of 200 miles per hour or greater. Because we have never had every dime we need in hand to build all the system at one time, this board has adopted 3 principles for going forward. Initiate high-speed rail service in California as soon as possible. Make strategic concurrent investments that will be linked over time and that provide mobility, economic, and environmental benefits at the earliest possible time. And position ourselves to construct additional segments as funding becomes available. As you can see on that, before I move slides here, as you can see on that, the section in blue on the map on slide 2 is, in essence, the Phase 1 Prop 1A segment from San Francisco connecting all the way into Los Angeles and Anaheim. Okay. I wanted to give a snapshot of about where we are today, and that is slide 3. We move forward in the valley connecting the cities of Merced, Fresno, and Bakersfield, and some of the other stops in between. And you consider that we're already in construction on the electrification of the Caltrain system in the peninsula, and the emergence of a new and important player in Southern California. We have 350 miles of electrified high-speed rail under development in California today. The dotted lines on that map reflect where we are still working on the environmental process. And so in the middle of 2020, again, we'll have cleared the section from Madera to Merced. We'll have cleared into Bakersfield. We are in construction in the San Francisco to San Jose stretch for electrification. And the new operators, again, 2 big changes on the Virgin train line that are worth talking about because it's an important element of bringing electrified high-speed rail to all Californians up and down the state, are really changes that occurred on that project. The first is a key ownership change. In the prior issue, there was really an ownership team that did not have a lot of depth in the area of transportation. Fundamental business structure was elsewhere. Now they brought into line Brightline Trains, who operates trains in Florida, and of course Virgin Trains, Richard Branson and his firm, who are established in the airline industry. So at the top of that organization are reputable folks in the transportation sector. The second important decision that they made there was, for a long time they had talked about using diesel trains for that service. And they have now turned to a commitment to electrified high-speed trains that can now travel at speeds in excess of 150 miles an hour and would be fully electrified. So that's what 2020 looks like. We jump ahead 18 to 24 months, and this is now slide 4. By 2022, under our federal funding agreement, you'll see here that we are ahead of schedule on all of the environmental documents under that agreement. The now dark blue lines on this map are now the completed environmental review for all of Phase 1 for high-speed rail. So again, I think it's important to reiterate, in the next 18 to 24 months, we will have environmentally cleared the entire 520-mile section of the Phase 1 high-speed rail system from San Francisco to Anaheim.
Brian?
Yes.
Is that part of federal requirements as well?
It is.
Okay.
By the end of 2022.
Thank you.
Yes. So all 520 will be environmentally cleared. 350 miles could be under full construction. The intention of the Virgin train system is to break ground as early as 2020. They see a construction horizon of approximately 4 years. As you know, the Caltrain electrification would be close to completion by 2022, and we would be in full construction on that Central Valley stretch in the middle of the state. So again, 350 miles under construction, 520 environmentally cleared. We have funding commitments to some of our station partners. We've already made substantial commitments to the Transbay Terminal in San Francisco. The Diridon Station, we are working on the planning process there. And of course at LA Union Station, through our Bookend investments, we've invested $423 million in that station. So I wanted to just point out that there's a lot of important things moving in California when you talk about electrified high-speed rail. And again, I mentioned this new operator that is an important partner for us. The Virgin Train proposal from Las Vegas to Victorville today is about a 180-mile stretch. 130 of those miles are in the state of California. It is largely being constructed on public right-of-way, and that makes me extremely jealous because while we are struggling through right-of-way things, they are mostly on the middle section of the I-15 corridor heading between Southern California and Vegas. And so this is truly what a P3 would look like. They are taking the investment risk in terms of liquidity and debt that they'll bring to invest in this program. They take the risk on the ridership numbers. But the state of California is a partner in very important ways here. First, they were for access to cheaper capital. They have appeared before our debt limit allocation committee and sought tax-exempt bonding authority, which was approved. They will be going to our infrastructure bank next week on October 23rd for some private activity bond approvals. The Secretary of the State of California's Transportation Agency will have to agree to the right-of-way assignment to them to construct this project. And so it is truly a P3 project in terms of they're taking the financial risk, and the state of California is helping them on the right-of-way and some of the access to cheap capital. I also want to point out that we ourselves are in a partnership with this entity. There's always been an MOU in place, even when it was before it was Virgin Trains, between the State Transportation Agency, what formerly was BT&H, and into the State Transportation Agency for the development of this system. But as recently as January of 2019, that MOU was updated. The Secretary of Transportation for the State of California signed that, as did we, as parties to upgrading that. And the important opportunities that really come into play that we want to continue to work closely with this group on are really because of their commitment to move to electrified high-speed service. We now want to evaluate opportunities with them to extend to Palmdale, interconnect with our system there. We have the ability to share information on designs, operations, ridership, construction data to evaluate interoperability and ensure that we can achieve interoperability, and evaluate and identify joint purchasing opportunities for materials and even possibly rolling stock and reservation and ticketing systems as that project develops and moves forward. So it is a very meaningful introduction of the service into Southern California region, and I think provides some opportunity for us to move forward down there on getting electrified high-speed service in the region sooner than we otherwise could. Next slide. Again, some of the important areas where we have some synergy or cooperation. We are working together now and provide opportunities to explore bringing high-speed rail benefits to Southern California sooner. The two systems do provide a synergy and potential higher ridership and other benefits greater than the sum of each system individually. Provides an opportunity to leverage joint procurement, as I mentioned. As I also said, the State Treasurer and the Infrastructure Bank are assisting Virgin Train financing through private activity bond allocation, introducing a new funding element in the delivery of high-speed rail in California. And again, there's an opportunity to work collectively with both them, I would say San Bernardino County and Los Angeles County, on the extension from Victorville into Palmdale. As you all know, Palmdale is a key stop for us in Southern California, and while they primarily will have the responsibility east and west out of Palmdale, we will primarily have the responsibility north and south through Palmdale. So Palmdale becomes a very important place for all of us to improve and create a connected service. I also wanted to point out that as we are moving forward, it's important to note that we continue to make investments up and down the state of California outside of just the Central Valley region. And I wanted to just cover some of the things that we are doing now in Southern California that will be helpful for our service eventually. As you know, we executed an MOU last month to move forward on the funding for the LA Union Station project. This authority is $441 million, including planning and that money into the improvements of LA Union Station. We are funding to the tune of about $363 million the environmental review work for the shared corridor that we talked a lot about earlier between Anaheim and Burbank, and that is not just for our service, but also for improved services of Metrolink, Losan, and others. We are $77 million into the Rosecrans-Marquardt grade separation, and there's $398 million that have come out of Prop 1A, what's called connectivity projects in Southern California. And so we have an ongoing investment down there today of $1.3 billion in that region today, and that puts us as part and parcel of the state of California's $4.4 billion investments in rail improvements in Southern California today, and that is resulting in about $16 billion in important improvements in that region on the transit and rail side. In Northern California and the Bay Area, likewise, we are important funding partners. As you all know, we're $714 million into the Caltrain electrification project, which is currently under construction. We are $293 million. We are investing in our environmental review work for the San Jose Merced and San Francisco to San Jose segments. $84 million for the San Mateo grade separation project, currently under construction as well. And the connectivity projects from 1A as well included about $543 million in those regions. So we're $1.6 billion today in our investments in these regions outside of the Central Valley. While it's not coming, oh, there it is. Lastly, I wanted to point to where we are on the environmental process. As I pointed out earlier, in about 18 to 24 months, the entirety of the Phase 1 system will be environmentally cleared. And I can't emphasize the importance of getting that done, not just to meet our funding agreement with the federal government, but getting these environmental documents done enables us to move to the next step in the project development process. And we will certainly have funding issues to grapple with to close these funding gaps between the Valley and Southern California and the Valley and the Bay Area. But we got to get the environmental work done so that we can further design, get on with right-of-way in the right sequence well before we get into construction, and move forward aggressively and strategically on things like utility relocations, all before we get into a new construction contract anywhere. The first place we'll have an opportunity to show that we've learned some lessons from how construction contracts were done before and what we can do now is in the Fresno to Bakersfield stretch, that stretch from Poplar down to F Street in downtown Bakersfield, because that's the rod that will be done next. And so, again, rather than stop and not proceed, we need to figure out how strategically we can go forward on the project development in that area. That will be followed by the why. This list here on slide 9 is a list in order of when the next environmental documents will come forward. Again, the Bakersfield is next and will be due in just a couple of weeks in October of this year. Center Valley Y in September of 2020. Bakersfield to Palmdale would follow that in February 2020. Palmdale to Burbank, February of 2020. San Jose to Merced, March of 2020, and San Francisco to San Jose, April of 2020. LA to Anaheim is right now scheduled for, actually, I should have slid over one more column there. That second column is when we will be introducing the draft environmental document. The completion date where we will execute the ROD is the third column over. So again, October, then you see the following dates in order. The Los Angeles to Anaheim one is, there are a couple of important things we have to work through at the Burbank Airport, and that's also the place where we are working closely with BNSF on some environmental clearance for projects that we will need to be able to expand the passenger service in that corridor. But important on this document, as you can see, while we paid some price for the disengagement from the FRA, which is defined in column 4 here, where we've had some pushback on some of the dates, you can still see we're well ahead of the 12/22 schedule for our federal requirements on the environmental document. And we'll continue to update this box as we go forward. But as Joe Hedges pointed out earlier, in stretches like Bakersfield to Palmdale, we thought it was worthwhile to take the time to talk to folks like the Cesar Chavez National Monument now on how we can work around that monument what might make sense to have the least impact there, and work through that, take the time to work that process now, even though it costs us a couple of months, so that we don't avoid conflict in lawsuits and other things later. And that's true with some other stretches that we'll be working on further south in some of the other areas. So again, it's strategic, but as you can see, while we've had some delay in the schedule, we are on schedule for the ROD dates under our federal funding agreement, and you see the number of float months we have in each of those in the last column there. So again, we tend to sometimes get down into the narrow of what are we arguing about today, but I wanted to sort of take a moment just to say, there's a lot of progress going on electrified high-speed rail in California, and it's wildly exciting because, as I said earlier, only that technology will allow us to transform the way people move and achieve the speeds that we are mandated to achieve under state law today. And so, and I wanted you all to see that even though we've had some movement in the environmental dates, we're well ahead of schedule, and we will deliver those under our funding grant agreement. So with that, I'm happy to stop and answer any questions.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
And good job on moving the ball on these, because again, the mission critical. The three segments, San Jose, Merced, Bakersfield, Palmdale, and Palmdale, Burbank, are the tunnel areas, and that would all be part of the environmental.
Danny, can you say it one more time?
The three segments that I just mentioned, San Jose, Merced, Bakersfield, Palmdale, Burbank, those are the tunnels that we're going to be.
Primarily, yes.
That's part of the report, right? Environmental impact report?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Other comments or questions, Brian? Okay, thank you. It's very helpful to have a.
Thank you, Mr.
overview
Chairman and
update.
members. Thank you.
Thank you.